Now we'll have Lena Slashmuijlder, the Director of Search for Common Ground in the Democratic Republic of Congo and the US.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you to UNESCO for inviting me again to this conference. I was also amongst the group in Bali. I am the Director of Search for Common Ground in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Search for Common Ground is one of the largest conflict transformation organizations in the world. We work in about 20 countries, and we really use media and communication technology as a tool of conflict transformation. I'm going to be very, very brief so that we can open up the catalytic discussion and conversation, and I'll also have a chance just now to present to you more of our work. But I just wanted to say that two things. One is that I come from a region where internet is really not accessible to everybody. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, most of the country has no electricity, and without electricity, it's quite difficult to get access to internet. Secondly, it's one of the poorest countries in the world, and even in the capital of Kinshasa, with 8 million people, there's very few people who really have access to internet. So when I'm talking about ICT for peace, I'm really talking about radio, I'm talking about telephones, and that's the way in which we've been able to really see technology enable people to cross borders, experience vicariously other people's reality, and begin to understand the other, as we're talking about today. The second point I want to make is that for the reality in which we're working, and I am happy to have people from Indonesia and Nepal of Search for Common Ground in the audience so we can share the conversation more widely about what Search for Common Ground does. But for the reality that I work in, conflict is not an abstract notion. We're talking about conflict on clear, real issues. For example, we're talking about elections violence. For example, we're talking about repatriated refugees who have no land. For example, we're talking about demobilized child soldiers who are rejected by their communities. And in each of those cases, and that's the experience that I'm here to share with you, Search for Common Ground is using ICT, media, telephones, a bit of internet, to really communicate and create dialogue and give people accurate information to transform those conflicts peacefully. We're able to take questions from refugees in the refugee camps. The DRC, there are Congolese in refugee camps in about 9 countries surrounding that country. They're able to send us their questions about, when I come back, will my child have access to school by SMS? We're able to answer their question in a radio program and send it back to them via internet, which will then be broadcast in the refugee camps. For demobilized child soldiers, we're able to give them the tools of being media producers and give them a voice in their community so that others can understand and hear the experiences of what it means and what it feels like to be having grown up in war and having chosen to demobilize, and the efforts of trying to reconstruct a society. We have been able through a number of countries, not only in the DRC, to use mobile phone technology and local radio stations to prevent violence around elections. Getting out accurate information in a time of crisis, in a time of high manipulation and rumors, can be the key to keeping peace at a time of potential violence. And I think I'd like to say more in the discussions, but the experience that Search for Common Ground brings into the Power of Peace Forum is really from a very practical experience as media producers, as people using media and technology day after day, producing hundreds of hours of radio programs and working with hundreds of radio and television stations all over the world. And we're able to see really what we're able to do and the unexplored opportunities. I look forward to the discussion.
Great, Lena. Thank you so very much. I think maybe we'll have about 10 more minutes for discussion. Is that okay? And I'll jump right into it. I think the big question that many people will ask of those of us who are proponents of using the media and ICTs to promote mutual understanding is, you know, to what extent does the promotion of mutual understanding really address issues of conflict and violence, as opposed to other approaches, whether it's looking at reducing poverty, whether it's promoting human rights, whatever the case may be. I mean, how does mutual understanding stand up to other social, economic, cultural, religious, and environmental conditions that may cause conflict that, if we were to address, would reduce or end conflict? What do you say?
I mean, it's a big question. It's a big dialogue to happen, but I think that these are big problems that we all face. And one of the things that we also face is race relation issues, or we face ethnic issues, etc. And until we can have mutual understanding between us as human beings, as opposed to what you look like or what religion you are, we can't solve the bigger problems. So we have to get beyond that, and media is a huge opportunity for us to use. But again, as I had mentioned earlier, media can also be used to destroy, and I think that we collectively here need to address the issue of there are a very small number of people that can use media and blast out things that are not correct, but people can also use this to blast out things that are correct, and I think that we have to look at that as well as an issue. But in general, obviously, the more that we can have a dialogue between each other without barriers coming between us that are ridiculous, the better off we are to move forward.
Great, thank you.
Okay, mutual understanding is the most important factor in resolving conflict. If you understand what the other party thinks, maybe you can try to convince him to change his idea. And all of this can be done through the internet, because it's now everything converged on the internet, whether radio, telephone, TV, news, everything on the internet. And it's now very difficult to send out wrong message, because people can find out the other information on the internet all the time. Some countries try to send out only the news they want their people to hear, and their people can go through the internet. Well, I like to see the internet free for everybody, like the air that we breathe is free, so the internet should be free, and it's coming that way. Many big cities in the US now have free internet, and with free internet, then you have free telephone, free radio, free TV, free news, and so on. And that will help resolve the conflict. If some organizations like UNESCO try to get people to understand how to get the right news, how to send the right message to all the people. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I think as well the conflict is natural, normal, it's inevitable in every issue and every problem that we are going to deal with in our lives. And it's only by dialogue and communication that we can deal constructively, non-violently with that problem. And thus we can't do that without communicating, without getting to know each other. So for us it's inevitable for our approach. And you know, I would just say that we do thus still need to recognize that not everyone really does have access to internet, and that it remains a challenge. Even if one makes internet free, not everyone has computers. So I think we just need to, do a bit of a reality check at times. There are really parts of the world that don't have access to internet. Maybe there's a lot more we can do with cell phones. I'll talk about this just now, but when we produced a reality TV program in Kinshasa about mobilizing youth for changing their communities. And at first we only wanted, and the program is based on people who write to us with their vision for change. And we initially put out spots on TV, on radio saying, write to us with an email address. And we got nearly no one who was able to get access to a cyber cafe in Kinshasa to write to us. When we said, send us an SMS, send us a text message, we get hundreds, if not thousands of people now contacting us. And so let's work with the reality and let's exploit that to the maximum. Of course, internet is important, it is the future, but let's also remember certain parts of the world really have more access to cell phones.